Open a history book and look at the map of great ancient builders. You'll see Rome, Greece, Egypt. Then nothing. The rest of Africa is just blank. That blank space isn't an accident. Someone left it out on purpose. Today we're looking at 5 places in Africa, with buildings that are so amazing, people first refuse to believe locals built them. This isn't about aliens or magic. This is real stone, real walls, real proof, and engineering that still confuses experts today. This is a story about real human genius that got left out of the books. Let's start with a church built underground. In the mountains of Ethiopia, there's a town called Lalibela, where you won't see any tall churches or towers. That's because these churches aren't built on top of the ground. They're carved down into solid rock. It's like someone dug a giant hole and made a building inside it. But here's the crazy part. The builders didn't start from the bottom, like normal buildings. They started from the top. Workers first dug deep trenches into the rock, leaving one giant block of stone standing in the middle. Then, working from the top down, they carved windows, rooms, ceilings, and pillars directly inside that enormous block of solid rock. One mistake could collapse everything. There was no way to repair it, because you can't simply glue a mountain back together. They built 11 of these remarkable churches, and somehow, every single one was completed without destroying the structure itself. But here's the real mystery. How do these underground churches remain dry despite Ethiopia's heavy annual rainfall? Ethiopia receives heavy rain every year. So normally, digging enormous holes into the ground should create serious flooding problems. But Lalibela's churches never flood, because hidden beneath them is an intricate system of tunnels and channels carrying water away. That system carries rainwater away, functioning like ancient plumbing that was carved directly through the surrounding volcanic rock. Someone understood water movement remarkably well, enough to build an effective drainage system inside a mountain more than 1,000 years ago. And if that sounds impressive, wait until you see a wall that needs absolutely no glue to remain standing. In southern Africa, on top of a hill, stands Great Zimbabwe, a stone city built from more than 1 million granite blocks. Some walls rise more than 30 feet tall, yet there's no mud, cement, or glue holding these enormous stones together. Nothing holds them together. The blocks are stacked with such precision that their own weight keeps the entire structure standing. To achieve that, every individual stone had to be carefully shaped and positioned to fit perfectly against the stones surrounding it. And the walls aren't straight. They curve deliberately, making them stronger and more resistant to cracking during earthquakes and structural movement. But here's the strangest part. The acoustics of these massive stone walls are just as remarkable as their construction. Stand at one precise location near the wall and whisper. Someone much farther away can hear you surprisingly clearly, but someone standing directly beside you may hear almost nothing, creating an acoustic effect that seems completely unnatural at first. The wall's shape and thickness carry sound across specific areas, functioning almost like an ancient telephone line constructed entirely from stone. For a long time, European historians refused to believe Africans built this city. Instead, they blamed foreign traders. Those stories were invented because admitting local African builders created mortar-free walls didn't fit the historical narrative they preferred. Eventually, the truth won. Today, historians recognize that Great Zimbabwe was built by local African people themselves. But it took more than 100 years of resistance before people accepted the truth, showing exactly how history can become erased. A city carved backward into a mountain, a wall strong enough without glue. And if that's impressive, we're only beginning. Next, we're going to see one enormous rock, carved to resemble a 10-story building and weighing more than a jumbo jet. And after that, we'll examine a wall system so massive that researchers compare its scale with the Great Wall of China. In northern Ethiopia stands Axum, where giant stone towers called Stele rise more than 70 feet and weigh hundreds of tons. Here's the crazy part. These aren't ordinary standing stones. Their surfaces were deliberately carved to resemble multi-story buildings. Cut directly into the solid rock are fake doors, windows across multiple levels, and wooden beams copied carefully into stone. One enormous rock was carved to resemble an entire apartment building, complete with doors, windows, and beams cut directly into granite. Now consider the difficulty. Workers first had to shape a rock weighing hundreds of tons without accidentally cracking the stone. Then they had to move it across miles of rough terrain without cracking it, before finally standing the massive stone upright. And they had to plant it deep enough into the ground so the monument wouldn't fall for more than 1,000 years. The largest attempted example weighed roughly 500 tons. Even today, moving something that massive with modern equipment remains extremely difficult.
In 1937, Italian soldiers stole one of the smaller Stele and took it to Rome. It stayed there for over 60 years. When countries finally agreed to return it in 2008, moving it required extraordinary modern resources. It took a special reinforced airplane, a team of modern engineers, and huge amounts of money just to fly it back and restand it. That tells you how incredible it is that ancient builders created even larger stele without modern machines at all. One rock, carved to look like a whole building. But that's not even the biggest thing this part of Africa built. In what is now southern Nigeria, there was once a kingdom called the Benin Empire, surrounding its capital with enormous walls and deep ditches. Scientists estimate these walls stretched somewhere between 10,000 and 16,000 kilometers in total across the landscape. Some researchers say that's actually longer than the entire Great Wall of China. But it wasn't just one wall. It was hundreds of walls and ditches, all connected and linking the capital city to hundreds of smaller towns. Different kings kept adding more over hundreds of years, gradually expanding this enormous defensive system across the kingdom. To dig that much earth, one scientist compared it to moving as much dirt as building the Great Pyramid of Giza. Many times over. That's not a guess. It's based on real measurements of the walls that still exist today. And the city in the middle wasn't small huts. Portuguese visitors described wide, straight streets, and a royal palace enormous by European comparisons. For a long time, historians didn't believe those reports, because they didn't fit what they wanted people to think about Africa. Then in 1897, British soldiers attacked the city, burned it down, and stole thousands of bronze statues and artworks. These artworks were so well made that European museums couldn't believe Africans had created them, so they invented stories about their origins. Instead of giving credit to the real artists, European institutions created explanations that erased the people who actually made them. The walls crumbled, the city burned, and an empire that built one of the largest walls on Earth quietly disappeared from history books. One rock carved to look like a skyscraper. A wall system possibly bigger than the Great Wall of China. Two amazing civilizations on opposite sides of the continent. And barely anyone learns about either one. But there's one place left. And it might be the most hidden and most forgotten secret of them all. Because it doesn't just challenge what Africa built. It challenges everything you were taught about Egypt. We've seen a city carved into a mountain, a wall with no glue, a carved stone skyscraper, and a wall possibly bigger than China's. Now, for our last stop, we're going to a desert full of pyramids. In a country most people never connect with pyramids. Everyone learns about the pyramids of Egypt. But right next door, in Sudan, there are actually more pyramids than in Egypt combined. Over 200 of them. These are the pyramids of Meroe, built by an ancient African kingdom called Kush. And they don't simply copy Egyptian style. Meroe's pyramids have their own look, small, sharp, and steep like stone rockets pointing skyward. Here's what most people don't know. The kingdom of Kush wasn't just a smaller copy of Egypt. For almost 100 years, Kushite kings actually ruled Egypt itself as pharaohs, forming what historians call Egypt's 25th dynasty. So the relationship wasn't Egypt teaching Africa how to build. At one point, African kings sat on Egypt's own throne. After that period ended, the kings of Kush moved their capital further south to Meroe, where an entire civilization developed around iron. Meroe sat on huge deposits of iron ore, and its people became master iron workers, running furnaces hot enough to produce tools and weapons. Some historians even nicknamed ancient Meroe the Birmingham of Africa, comparing it to major industrial cities, but 2,000 years earlier. So why haven't you heard of it? Partly because Meroe's writing system, called Meroitic, still hasn't been fully translated today. We can read the letters, but don't fully understand the language, meaning countless records and histories remain carved in stone, unread.
Think about that for a second. It's not a hidden conspiracy. An entire African civilization left us a library, and we still lack the key. So here's the real question. Why did 5 sites this incredible get left out of most history books? Some of it really was bias. European historians refused to believe African societies could build things this advanced, so they created other explanations. Great Zimbabwe is proof of that. It took over 100 years for the world to finally admit the truth. But some of it is simpler than a conspiracy. Some places are hard to reach, while some records remain written in languages we can't fully read. School textbooks only have so many pages, so certain stories get cut, and once something's cut, it tends to stay cut for generations. Either way, the result is the same. Real, standing, physical proof of incredible engineering exists, and most people never learn it exists. 5 sites, 5 civilizations, all on one continent that history books love to skip over, yet each leaves extraordinary evidence behind. This isn't ancient aliens. This isn't magic. It's real history, standing right there in the stone, waiting for people to actually look. If you want more real places history left out, hit subscribe, because we're just getting started. I'm the voice behind Lost Archives. Stay curious.